DeAndre Hopkins has been mentioned in a gazillion trade rumors this offseason. Some with the Bills, some with the Chiefs, some with the Ravens, and nothing ever happened. Nothing happened. And we're all sitting there on Friday getting ready for Memorial Day weekend, wondering what's next for us, not really DeAndre Hopkins. And the news breaks that he gets released. And my first thought is the Cardinals are taking for Caleb Williams. That was my initial thought because releasing a guy like DeAndre Hopkins just seems like malpractice. But then you get into the other aspect of it of where is he going next? And I know that all the talk is going to be about the Bills and about the Chiefs. And I'm sure to some degree people bring up the Jets because they have Rodgers, and some people might bring up the Giants because it's New York and they don't have a wide receiver one. But this isn't biased speaking. I do think the Saints present a decent landing spot for DeAndre Hopkins. And I think that the answer to this question, should they pursue him, I think it's a resounding yes. Now, let's get into what he wants. Let's get into why I think that could happen. And then we'll go from there. Let's start with wants. DeAndre Hopkins, according to multiple reports, is looking for stable management. He's looking for a quarterback who, in quotes, loves football. And he's looking for a top-tier defense. Those are the three things that they've been talking about. Do the Saints have those three things? Well, let's start off with stable management. The Saints have had the same GM for a long, long time with a stable owner, one of the most stable owners in the NFL, a loyal fan base, and a team that, despite going 7-10, and we were talking about how disappointing last year was, they ran it back. They ran it back, and they instilled confidence in this group. They didn't just blow it up and act rash. So stable management. I think the Saints absolutely check off that box for DeAndre Hopkins. Quarterback who loves football. You don't have to love Derek Carr. You don't. But the guy does love football. You just, when you hear him speak, you know how important the game is to him. You know how important winning is to him. And you know how important the team camaraderie of all this is to him. So, yes, I do think the Saints check off that box too. Now, it's not a Patrick Mahomes. It's not a Josh Allen. But they check off that box. The Saints aren't starting Andy Dalton at quarterback. So, I think box 2, check to New Orleans. Top-tier defense. On paper, yes. Coming off last year, yes. Having a defensive-minded coach who has done nothing but produce good defenses in New Orleans, yes. So they check off all three boxes that DeAndre Hopkins wants to be checked off. Now, there's another aspect of this. DeAndre Hopkins does not want to get paid nothing for his services. He doesn't. He doesn't want to get paid pennies and nickels for his services. And why is that interesting? Well, the New Orleans Saints, the same team that Nick Wright sits there and tells you they're running a Ponzi scheme and they don't know how to manipulate the cap. That team has $13.6 million in cap space. Far more than the Chiefs, far more than the Bills, far more than the Jets, far more than the Ravens, far more than the Giants. All these teams that are in the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes, allegedly, Saints have way more cap space than them. So they fill his three requirements, and they fill the requirement of, hey, I'm not paying for free. I still need to get paid. I'm DeAndre freaking Hopkins. So the Saints check off that box. Now, let's talk about whether or not it's a good fit. I think DeAndre Hopkins going to New Orleans changes an awful lot for this team. But here's the first thing he changes, and I think it's the most important thing. If the Saints get DeAndre Hopkins, and God forbid one of their top 4 receivers goes down due to injury, the sky is not falling at all. Look, I love Olave. I love Shaheed. I think they're taking year 2 jumps, especially Olave. But be honest with yourself. If Michael Thomas gets hurt again, and no one wants to see that, we'd all get upset about it. And we all start to go, I don't know about the receiving core now. Like, someone has to step up. If the Saints sign DeAndre Hopkins, and that situation, albeit we don't want it to happen, does unfold, Olave, Shaheed, D-Hop as your 3, those are your main 3 in that situation, you're still feeling pretty damn good. And let's say Michael Thomas is healthy. Which secondary is going to slow down a wide receiver group that has 2 physical, dominant, great receivers who do it all in Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins, and then 2 guys on the outside with speed in Olave and Shaheed, which the other one in Olave has not just speed, wide receiver 1 capabilities. So I think bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, A, it's a no-brainer because the Saints are looking for talent. But B, here's the fascinating thing, right? I've been sitting here for months saying, and so have many others, obviously, the Saints should go after Hunter Renfrow. The Saints can pursue Hunter Renfrow. He'd give them that other weapon. I'm still not off that train. I think if the Saints could get Hunter Renfrow, that'd be great. DeAndre Hopkins is a free agent. You don't have to give up anything to get him, and you have a lot to gain from getting him. And I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is a top 5 wideout anymore. I think that ship has sailed. But is he top 20 still? I think he is when he's healthy. I think he'll make a big impact. I mean, the guy missed, 8 games last year, still had over 700 yards. So I think Hopkins would be a no-brainer for the Saints. He would give you a ton of comfort in that receiving group. And I think for New Orleans, I think that with the defense aging, there is a benefit to going in on offense, going all in on offense, and adding a lot. So I think for him, it makes a lot of sense. And now I don't think they're going to be his preferred choice. And I think that's important about this. To be realistic, I don't think they're his preferred choice. I think if the stars aligned, he'd choose Buffalo or he'd choose Kansas City. But the stars are not aligning right now. And money is a factor no matter how much players tell you it's not. It absolutely is. And the Saints can simply offer more money than these other teams. And if they bring in DeAndre Hopkins, guess what? All the excuses that we may give Derek Carr, they're off the table. And he's got to produce because he'd be looking around with a running back room of Alvin, Jamal Williams, and Kendrick Miller, a wide receiver group of D-Hop, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and others, tight ends of Foster Moreau, Jawan Johnson, and your do-it-all player in Taysom Hill. That kind of seems fail-proof. You have to produce, and there will be no more excuses. There will also be no more excuses for Pete Carmichael. So I'm for them pursuing him. Do I think they're going to get him? I really don't know. I would lean towards no because I think at the end of the day, teams like the Bills and Chiefs will manipulate the cap enough to bring him in because he might be that missing piece to their championship puzzle. But do the Saints check off the boxes? Do the Saints make sense for DeAndre Hopkins? Resounding yes. Resounding yes.